Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the 700 Club. Well, they say it's the battleground of the future, and it looks like the North Koreans, despite the fact they're going to have a summit with President Trump, are using their technology to hack into all the installations of the United States, power grids, banks, all kinds of special reports. And they're going after businesses from Asia to Turkey. And what are we going to do about it? That's the question. Terry?
Well, and that news comes as the Senate is set to confirm President Trump's nominee for Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, just a few weeks before the president's going to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Gary Lane has the story.
Only 4 Democrats said they would join Republicans in supporting Mike Pompeo's confirmation. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wanted more Democratic votes, but along with all Republicans supporting the president's nominee, he now has the numbers to make Pompeo the next Secretary of State.
I mean, who would argue that Mike Pompeo is not totally qualified to be Secretary of State?
But argue they did. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee recommended confirmation by only 1 vote. Democrats like Senator Cory Booker suggested what critics called a religious litmus test for the nominee, questioning Pompeo's deeply held Christian beliefs and past comments he made opposing same-sex marriage. After meeting with Pompeo, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer led the charge against his confirmation.
I said, now that you're Secretary of State, you're in a different position. Would you walk back some of the really nasty comments that he has made about Muslim Americans or people from South Asia? He demurred. I am voting no for those reasons.
Republicans argued Pompeo has a stellar record and is key to continuing talks with North Korea. Over Easter weekend, he held secret negotiations with Kim Jong-un, paving the way for the possible denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. And as Kim Jong-un meets with South Korean President Moon, there's a new disturbing revelation. Cybersecurity experts say North Korea may have been behind the cyber attack of a Turkish bank last month. They say Operation Go Secret is a global data theft campaign, much bigger than originally thought. They believe North Korean hackers have gone after targets in 17 countries, including the U.S., and have stolen more than just military secrets. The data theft involves infrastructure, healthcare, and telecommunication industries. In 2016, I discussed cybersecurity with then-Congressman Mike Pompeo. I think most Americans would assume that our government is protecting us from these potential cyber attacks, but you suggested we're not even there yet.
All of our intelligence agencies, our Department of Defense are all working to meet this threat. But it's a fast-moving world. It's a place where offense is easier than defense, and keeping up with the next innovation in cyber warfare is an enormous challenge.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, as I've said on this program many times, the United States has the most sophisticated cyber warfare capability of any nation on earth. And it's time we turn it loose on countries like North Korea. We can shut them down. The NSA has the ability to do that. And the question is, are we going to use that capability or not? I'm sure we're trying to, but we haven't just aimed, laser-like at the North Koreans, and we can do that and literally shut their country down. But, of course, the president is trying to make nice with Kim Jong-un, and we'll see what happens to that. But I want to say also, this is such an important field of study, and we have at Regent University courses now in cybersecurity, including a certificate of somebody who is a cybersecurity expert and can go to work in that field. So we have several hundred people already taking courses at Regent University, and that telephone number, by the way, if you're interested in a degree or some study in cyber, it's 866-910-7615. That's Regent, and you can learn how to become a cybersecurity specialist or to get a master's degree, even a doctorate in cyber in a very sophisticated, I might say, we've got a cyber range that is it's probably the most sophisticated of any university in America. So it's available, and we're training the corporate leaders of a number of corporations, and the Defense Department and the Navy and others are very interested in having their officials trained at Regent University. Well, in other news, President Trump may be gaining a Secretary of State, but he's lost his nominee to head up the Veterans Administration. Wendy Griffith has that.
That's right, Pat. White House Dr. Ronny Jackson withdrew from consideration to be the Secretary of Veterans Affairs early today. Jackson had faced a growing number of accusations in recent days about his behavior in the workplace, including recklessly providing drugs and being drunk. Jackson says he didn't think he needed to respond to baseless and anonymous attacks on his character. Both Democrats and Republicans had questioned whether or not he had the experience to head up the VA, which has 360,000 employees. An American pastor is facing charges of terrorism in Turkey, but his supporters say he's simply being used as a political pawn. They say Turkey has stacked the deck against Andrew Brunson. But as Jennifer Wishon reports, U.S. Congress is ready to punch back.
On May 7th, Pastor Andrew Brunson is condemned once again to the notorious prison where he began his 18-month detention, the place where he lost 50 pounds.
He can never leave his cell, ever. Not to eat, not to go to the restroom, not to get some fresh air.
Christina Arriaga is one of just a few people who've seen Brunson. Despite severe overcrowding, he's isolated as the only Christian and speaks limited Turkish.
They're doing their prayers all the time so he doesn't sleep. He's anxious, he's nervous.
Now his Turkish attorney, who could be jailed himself, is facing a near impossible task.
They fabricate evidence. They have these secret witnesses that fabricate testimony, and it really puts you in a poor position to provide any kind of defense.
Pastor Brunson has no opportunity of a free and fair trial in Turkey. He is already smeared and condemned in Turkey's pro-government media. He has no attorney-client privilege.
Aykan Erdemir is a former member of Turkey's parliament. He says what's happening to Brunson reads like a science fiction novel. At his trial, Brunson spent hours defending himself against the most ludicrous charges. Brunson's defenders say his detention has nothing to do with the bogus charges against him. They contend he's a pawn for Turkish President Erdogan, who's holding him hostage to pressure the U.S. into extraditing several Turkish nationals and to settle his own paranoia following a failed coup attempt 2 years ago.
At the center of his paranoia is his fixation with the West and what he sees as the Judeo-Christian civilization. So this is part of his crusade against the West.
Now that Turkey's court has had a chance to do the right thing, bipartisan members of Congress are pursuing sanctions against Turkish officials who participate in the detainment of innocent American citizens. Since actions against Pastor Brunson and other Americans, they say, qualify as hostage-taking. Under Turkish law, Brunson could languish in prison for 7 years before courts take any action. If convicted, the 50-year-old father of 3 faces a sentence of 35 years. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Pat, even if Congress takes action, do you think it'll help?
It's bound to help because I tell you, Turkey is part of NATO. I mean, we're have given them the privileges of all the free markets of the world. And what we've got in Turkey now is a Muslim dictatorship. And Erdogan has taken what was a democratic nation and a strong ally of the United States and of Western Europe, and he's turned it into a Muslim nightmare. And I just think it's time that the United States act against it. They can't continue, but unfortunately, we have a base in Incirlik in Turkey, and the Turks have been important allies, and we need their support in some of the action we have to take in the Middle East. But nevertheless, we can't allow this man to do what he's doing with that pastor. And American citizens have to have the thought that they're sacrosanct when they get overseas. we cannot allow foreign governments to mistreat our citizens. If we do, there's no safety for any of them. And so I think it's something that we have to deal. If you can't deal against Erdogan himself, then go after certain of his officials. And I think that's the way to hurt them. Take away their privileges with banking, take away their privileges of travel and things like that, and all of a sudden you begin to gain some points. I got to know a man named Rudy Giuliani back in the presidential campaign, the last one. He was a leading contender for the Republican nomination, but of course that went to Donald Trump. But he is a former U.S. attorney. He's a former mayor and a very strong lawyer. He's been added to the defense team of the president. And, well, here's Wendy with more about what he's doing.
That's right, Pat. Rudy Giuliani met with special counsel Robert Mueller Tuesday. Giuliani is President Trump's new personal lawyer, handling Mueller's probe into Russian interference in the 2016 election. The Washington Post reports the two men discussed the possibility of Mueller interviewing the president. Giuliani says the president is resisting that idea, but isn't ruling it out. Giuliani is hoping to wrap up the Russia probe as soon as possible, and President Trump said this morning he has decided not to be involved in the Justice Department Russia probe, but added he could change his mind. Well, if you want to help your brain, try eating dark chocolate. Two new small studies found that it can improve your memory and thinking abilities. It can also reduce stress and inflammation and even improve your mood. The studies from Loma Linda University in California use dark chocolate with a high concentration of cocoa, 70%. And I can definitely testify that it improves my mood. Does it improve your mood, Pat?
Well, I don't know about my mood, but it's really good for you. My blood pressure is really, really low, and I mean, it's low in a good sense. But this stuff is good to remove inflammation and to open up your arteries and enhance your cognition. But I believe in 72% cocoa or higher concentrations. They call that dark chocolate. Milk chocolate has got a lot of sugar in it. It doesn't do you much good. But the dark chocolate is good. Do you use it?
I don't use it often, but do you? Do you eat it regularly?
Well, you know, I used to be able to get whole cases of those bars that were 72%. Now they don't sell them. The vitamin shop stopped selling them, and they're hard to get, but they are available in grocery stores, at least like Whole Foods and others. But yes, I have, people have been kind enough to send me some dark chocolate, and I use it quite frequently.
Good for you.
It's very good for you.